Hello everyone, welcome to Cellopedia, this is Maxim. You just heard me to play the first etude by Joseph Merk. This amazing etude will allow us to work on chromatic scales, bow distribution, string crossings, and arpeggios. Let's work together on it, measure by measure, and after we're done with it, we will play together in a slow tempo. The first 4 measures of this etude is dedicated to chromatic scale. For 2 measures, you play it up, and for 2 measures, down. You know that the definition of chromatic scale is that the distance between every note is just a half a step, the closest distance in classical music. And with the exception of the top note, we will just use the same pattern. 3 fingers, 1, 2, 3. It would be very useful to play this pattern many times. And let's just start with first notes. Now, it seems to be very easy, but remember, unless you repeat it many times, you will never be able to think about those notes as just one unit. When you play in a fast tempo, you have no time to think about individual note. Here, the idea of putting together several notes and thinking about them is just one group will be extremely helpful. This is why I would suggest to repeat each of those groups several times. That would sound like this. And then you make a shift and repeat it several times. Then you can combine first few notes. And so on. You will feel which notes require a little bit more effort to play, and once you feel it, you add more repetitions, so you play it again and again. As a result, you should be able to play it 3 notes per bow in this tempo. Make sure that you pay attention to the all notes you have to make a shift to. Those are key notes in this passage. Once you remember about them, once you're able to think ahead that every shift is coming, then your tempo will go up. And to make things a little bit easier, you just need to think, okay, every shift I have to make on the way up will be done with the first finger. You will have to work the same way when you practice this chromatic scale on the way down, starting from the beginning of the 3rd measure. I repeated every group 2 times. Most likely you will need to do more than that. And you shouldn't stop just grouping those notes this way. You can play just a smaller group, for instance, first few notes. The more creative you are choosing which groups of notes you will have to repeat, the better you will learn this passage. Then, instead of 3 notes per bow, you can play 6 notes per bow. That will sound this way. When you try to play with original bowings, you will have to make sure that you pay attention to the bow distribution. That means that you don't spend too much bow right away. You try to use as little bow as possible at the beginning of each bow stroke. This way you will have more bow left for the last few notes of each bow stroke. For example, this way will not go well. And you see, I already ran out of the bow. This way, I need to think ahead and plan to use way less bow for the first few notes. And that was way easier to play. Next few measures will give us a chance to work on C major arpeggio, and there will be many string crossings. To me, those string crossings present very substantial challenge. I believe that those string crossings are really hard to make well, and most likely you will have to spend a lot of time just working on this spot. Try to move your wrist as little as possible. In a slower tempo, you might seem to have enough time to move a lot, but in a faster tempo, that will limit your speed. That will not allow you to play as fast as you want. So many string crossings in a row, and you will have to make sure that you do most of that just by gently turning your wrist. You will not be able to make good string crossing if you move your elbow a lot. As always, practice in a slower tempo and pay attention how efficiently your wrist moves. Of course, in order to be able to pay a lot of attention to your right hand, you will have to spend some time working on shifts. Speaking about left hand here, I believe that you should be able to work on those shifts on your own, but there is one instance when you have to use 2 fourth fingers in a row. And I would suggest to use this technique when you actually roll the finger from D to G string. You don't lift the finger the way you would normally do, because in a faster tempo you will not have time to do that. Try to do it this way. From G to C. This kind of technique might turn out to be very useful for you to play many fast pieces when you don't have enough time to lift finger between notes. In the measure 8, you will have to make shifts while playing open string. It's just a variation of the standard way of making shifts, and in this case you cannot make a shift just sliding on the string. Here you will have to lift all fingers to allow open string to sound well. Just make sure that you pay attention to that. It's really interesting, because once you feel that you are making those shifts in a different way, that means you have a good control how you make those shifts. And the last thing to mention is that you have to pay attention to changing the bow angle when you go from one string to another. In many passages here, you will have to change the string many times in the same measure. This means that you start on the lower strings with an angle like this, and then you have to turn the bow when you move to another string. This way when you move to the higher string, and this way when you move to the lower strings. The rest of the etude has the same issues to work on: chromatic scales and arpeggios. So I think you are good to go now. Work on each measure the way I suggested. And now I will play this etude for you in a slower tempo, 48, 3 notes per bow. I hope that this experience working on this first etude will inspire you to continue and go through many exercises from this book. They are very difficult, but all the time you spend working on those exercises will reward you with a special experience. Because many of those exercises are also very melodic and written so well so you can even perform it. And if you do it well, you will see that your audience will enjoy it. Thank you for watching. See you again soon.